All right, buckle up for some real-life Halloween chills because this time
Oh, yeah.
we're diving into a listener-submitted story
Okay.
from the Vile Vision podcast,
Okay.
and it'll make you rethink trick-or-treating safety.
Right.
Forget ghosts and goblins we're talking about.
Right.
Those unsettling encounters
Yeah.
that stick with you
Right.
long after the jack-o'-lanterns are put away.
I like it. I like it. What's fascinating about these types of stories
Yeah,
is how they tap into that primal fear of the unknown.
right.
We'll be exploring
Okay.
a series of events where seemingly random occurrences might actually point to something
Oh.
more sinister,
Uh.
and how our own minds grapple with making sense of these events.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
The story starts back in 2007
Okay.
on Halloween night.
All right.
We've got 4 high school friends,
Mm-hmm.
Dan, Ivan, Jesse, and Ryan,
Okay.
dressed up as Super Mario characters
Classic.
and hitting the streets for some good old-fashioned trick-or-treating.
I love it.
I'm picturing the costumes, the candy bags, the crisp autumn air.
Yeah.
It all seems pretty idyllic at first.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But as with any good thriller, there's a shift.
Okay.
Late in the evening,
Mm-hmm.
they come across a house
Yeah.
with a purple candy bucket sitting outside,
Mm-hmm.
empty. A
Oh.
little disappointing. But as they're turning to leave, an older man suddenly appears in the window
Oh.
and invites them in for more candy.
Now, I don't know about you,
Oh, yeah.
but that's setting off some alarm bells for me already.
I could see that.
It's getting late.
Yep.
They don't know this guy.
Right, what did they do?
Van immediately feels uneasy and wants to leave.
Good.
Ivan, however, is a little more adventurous
Oh, no.
and actually steps inside.
Oh, gosh.
Luckily, Dan manages to convince everyone to get out of there quickly.
Okay, good.
They avoid what could have been a dangerous situation,
Right.
but their night isn't over yet.
This is where things start to take a truly creepy turn, right?
Exactly.
As they're walking near a nature preserve,
Uh-huh.
they start hearing footsteps following closely behind them.
Okay, that's officially sending shivers down my spine. It's dark, they're near the woods.
Right.
It's like something out of a horror movie.
It is?
Do they ever find out who it was?
That's the unsettling part.
Oh.
They don't.
Oh, okay.
They try to rationalize it, thinking it could be an animal
Okay.
or just the wind playing tricks on them.
Right.
But the footsteps match their pace, stopping when they stop
Oh, wow.
and starting again when they move.
Really?
They even try yelling out,
Okay.
hoping to scare off whoever or whatever's back there.
You know, it's interesting. The story doesn't mention
Mm.
what costumes Dan and his friends were wearing that night.
Uh-huh.
Do you think their choice to dress as recognizable video game characters
Oh, interesting.
might have made them seem
Yeah.
more approachable,
Okay.
perhaps even vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
to someone with bad intentions?
That's a really insightful observation. It makes you wonder if their costumes meant for fun and celebration might have inadvertently played a role in them
Oh, wow.
being targeted.
Yeah,
It's chilling to think about.
it is.
But this sense of being watched, pursued by something unseen, is a theme that runs throughout the entire story.
So what happens next?
Well,
Do they manage to shake off this feeling of being followed?
they end up running all the way to Jesse's house, hoping to find safety in numbers.
Okay.
But even there,
Yeah.
things don't feel quite right.
Uh-oh.
They hear the backyard gate slam shut,
Okay.
but when they check, there's no one there.
So are we talking about a real threat here? Or is it possible their imaginations are running wild after that encounter with the man at the house earlier?
That's where the idea of confirmation bias comes into play.
right.
Think of it this way: after a particularly frightening experience,
Oh.
we might start seeing danger everywhere, even when it's not really there.
Yeah.
Our minds try to connect the dots, seeking patterns and explanations, especially when it comes to things that scare us.
That's true.
It makes you question whether Dan and his friends are truly in danger, or if their fear is shaping how they perceive events.
That's a great point. It's almost like our brains are wired to look for threats, even when they might not exist. It makes you wonder how much of our perception of reality is actually influenced by our own anxieties.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this psychological element is key to understanding not just this particular story, but also how we react to fear and unsettling situations in our own lives.
Right.
We'll dive deeper into that later.
Okay.
But for now, the story takes another turn that adds another layer of intrigue to the mix.
Lay it on me.
Okay.
What happens next?
No.
So we left off with Dan and his friends shaken but safe at Jesse's house after that unsettling walk home.
Right.
Does this creepy night end there?
It doesn't.
Okay.
And this is where the story takes a leap forward in time.
Okay.
Years later, Dan finds himself chaperoning his younger brother and cousin for Halloween.
Oh, okay.
Seems like a typical night of trick-or-treating
Mm-hmm.
until a white van pulls up alongside them.
Oh, no, this is giving me a bad feeling already.
Yeah.
It's every parent's nightmare, isn't it?
It is.
That moment when you realize something is very wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a heart-stopping scenario.
Right.
The driver asks for help with his passenger seat,
Mm-hmm.
but before anyone can react, someone inside the van tries to grab one of the kids.
This is just awful.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned earlier that these stories tap into our primal fears.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine anything more primal than the fear of someone trying to take your child.
Right.
What happens next?
Well,
Does Dan manage to intervene?
he does.
Okay, good.
Dan, remembering his own unsettling experience from years ago, reacts instantly.
Okay.
He fights back.
Good for him.
And thankfully, a neighbor with a rifle scares the attackers off.
Oh, wow.
The kids are safe.
Thank goodness.
But the story takes another dark turn.
Oh, no.
The very next day, a news report surfaces about a missing 9-year-old boy in their town.
Oh, my goodness. That's chilling.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder if there's a connection, doesn't it?
Right. If the people in the van were involved in that boy's disappearance,
Yeah.
do we ever find that out?
The story leaves that question unanswered,
Oh, gosh.
which only adds to the unsettling feeling.
Right.
But it raises an important point.
Okay.
How much do our past experiences shape our perception of current events,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to something as terrifying as this?
Of course.
Dan is left shaken,
Mm-hmm.
wondering if he could have done more, if there was some way to prevent that boy's abduction.
Right.
This is where confirmation bias can really take hold.
You're right. After an experience like that, it's easy to see danger lurking around every corner. It makes you question everything.
Absolutely.
But wouldn't this kind of heightened awareness be beneficial in some ways? I mean, wouldn't it make you more vigilant and cautious in the future?
That's a great question. And it gets to the heart of why confirmation bias is such a complex phenomenon.
Okay.
On the one hand, it can make us more alert to potential threats.
But on the other hand, it can also lead us to misinterpret situations, to see danger where none exists.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Think about it this way.
Yeah.
You're walking down a dark street, and you hear footsteps behind you.
Mm-hmm.
Your mind instantly races back to that scary encounter you had years ago,
Uh-huh.
and suddenly you're convinced you're being followed again.
Okay.
But what if it's just someone walking home from work?
I see what you mean. It's about finding that balance between being aware of our surroundings and not letting our past experiences dictate our every move. We can't live in a constant state of fear, but we also can't afford to be naive. It's a tricky line to walk.
Right.
But the story about Dan and the attempted abduction
Yeah,
isn't the only one in this Vile Vision episode, is it?
you're right.
Okay.
There's another story that delves even further into this idea of the fear of the unknown.
Oh, okay.
It involves a group of friends, Halloween night, and an abandoned house.
Okay.
Says something.
Oh, it definitely fits the classic horror movie trope.
It does.
What makes this story stand out?
Well, while the setting might seem cliche, the events that unfold are anything but.
Okay.
We have 3 friends,
Mhm.
Jordan, Chris, and their friend,
Okay.
who decide to explore a seemingly deserted house on a dirt road.
Okay.
Classic Halloween adventure.
Totally. There's always something alluring about a creepy old house, especially on Halloween. It's like daring the unknown to reveal itself.
Right.
What happens once they get inside?
Well, they're in the backyard
Uh-huh.
when suddenly a masked figure wielding a machete charges at them.
A machete. Okay, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
I'm guessing this wasn't some harmless prank gone wrong.
Not at all.
My
They barely escape running for their lives.
gosh.
Later, when they report the incident to the police,
Yeah.
they discover the house has been vacant for months,
What?
meaning whoever was chasing them had no business being there.
That's just bone chilling.
Yeah.
No ghost stories here, just a real-life machete-wielding threat lurking in the shadows.
Right.
It makes you think about how vulnerable we can be, even in seemingly familiar settings, especially on a night like Halloween, when the line between fantasy and reality can feel blurred.
Absolutely.
Did they ever find out who this masked figure was?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh, wow.
Whoever it was vanished without a trace, leaving behind a chilling reminder that sometimes the scariest monsters aren't the ones we conjure up in our imaginations, but the ones that exist in the real world.
That's a great point.
And that leads us to a crucial question.
Okay.
How do we navigate these real-life horrors, especially on a night like Halloween, where the line between fun and fear can be so thin.
It's a great question, and one that probably resonates with a lot of our listeners. We've been exploring these creepy stories, these unsettling encounters, but what can we actually learn from them? How can we translate this feeling of unease into something actionable, something that empowers us to stay safe? We've been deep in these real-life Halloween horrors,
Yeah.
and I think it's time to shift gears a bit.
Okay.
These stories are unsettling, no doubt.
Right.
But maybe we can use this unease to empower ourselves and our listeners.
Okay. Yeah.
What are some practical tips for staying safe, especially on a night like Halloween?
Absolutely. It's all about being aware and prepared.
Right.
First and foremost, trust your instincts.
Okay.
If something feels off, it probably is.
Right.
Don't dismiss those gut feelings, especially when it comes to safety.
That's so important. We often try to rationalize those feelings away.
Yeah.
But sometimes our intuition is picking up on something our conscious mind hasn't processed yet.
Exactly.
Right.
And along with trusting your gut,
Yeah.
be aware of your surroundings.
Okay.
Stick to well-lit, populated areas, especially if you're out after dark.
Right.
There's safety in numbers and visibility.
And this might seem obvious, but it's worth repeating.
Yeah.
Never, ever go into a stranger's home or car, no matter what they say or promise.
Right.
It's better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely. For those who are trick-or-treating with kids, have a plan.
Okay.
Know the route, set boundaries.
Right.
And make sure someone knows where you're going and when you'll be back.
Yeah, that's smart.
A buddy system is always a good idea, too.
Those are all great tips. It sounds like the key takeaway here is to be present, aware, and prepared, not just on Halloween, but really anytime we're out and about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember these stories, while scary,
Yeah.
highlight the importance of trusting ourselves and our instincts. We all have that inner voice that tells us when something isn't right.
Right.
Don't ignore it.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
Yeah, it has.
We started with some spooky stories.
We did!
But we've really uncovered some valuable insights about personal safety awareness and the power of our own intuition. It's almost like we've turned these unsettling tales into a guide for staying safe.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
And it's a great reminder that even in the face of fear, we have the power to protect ourselves and those we care about. Knowledge is power, as they say.
Well said. So as we wrap up our Halloween horrors deep dive, I have one final question for our listeners.
Okay, shoot.
Have you ever had a creepy Halloween experience?
Oh.
Or even just a moment when you felt like something wasn't quite right?
Yeah.
What did you learn from that experience?
And how did it change the way you approach personal safety?
Yeah.
We'd love to hear your stories.
Because sometimes the best way to conquer our fears is to share them, learn from each other, and remember that we're not alone in those unsettling moments.
I agree.
So stay curious, stay safe, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.